for us to move forward as a country, we need people that are willing to change the status quo. We need people that are willing to disrupt the status quo, because one of the biggest problems that we have as a country, when you go into government, what they're always going to tell you is, this is how we do things here. And that's the biggest nail on the coffin of every change you can think of. Once you accept that this is how we do this here, then you're not going to change anything. We have a huge number of issues, whether it be from power, from water, from healthcare, from education. The most important thing is to be able to identify one thing and show how you can then address it. The faster we can put together this coalition of people that see problems that need solving and then chase positions or support people to positions that can solve problems, the faster we change.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode. Alhamdulillah, we've been discussing with a lot of business people, individuals. We've been having them talk about how to become the best version of yourself as a business person, becoming the best entrepreneur. But recently, I came across an amazing book, and it's called Disruption: Rethinking Governance to Work for the Poor, and it was written by Muhammad Sani Abdullahi Dattijo. So I was doing the business series, so I had to take a break to go through this book, because and one thing that captured my attention about the book is that the word poor there, because a lot of people write books today, they don't even care about the poor people, because everybody just feel, let's write a nice book, look good, and let's sell it out there. But for me, I felt there was sincerity of purpose in this book, and that's why I want to discuss with the author. But before we kickstart this program, stay tuned, and we will be right back. All right, welcome back to the episode. Alhamdulillah, my guest for today is none other than Muhammad. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
How you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
The first time I saw you was at Umrah. And when I saw you, I was looking at you and I was like, hey, this guy, I think I know him, man. Because I've seen you on TV and I know that you were in politics and likes of it. So then I was staying away from politicians because I had an issue with politicians, right? And I was like, no need to say salam to him. Maybe if I go say salam to him, I think that I need something from him. So I just passed you by and I said, khalas, may Allah make it easy. When I came back to Abuja again, I saw you in the mosque in the estate here, and I saw you praying there during Ramadan as well. I was like, oh, look at him again. I didn't say anything to you again. And then I just saw that, you wrote a book, and I went to Spine and Label, and I got the book there, and I, went through it, and I was amazed by what you wrote about the book and likes of it. And I went through your history, and I was like, whoa, this guy has done so many amazing things, even before he became a politician. So mashallah, it's awesome to have you on the program. My first question will be this. Why now? Why did you choose to write the book now?
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I wish you'd spoken to me all the other times that you saw me. I'm sure we would have known each other much longer.
Yeah.
Well, alhamdulillah, the book, to be honest, when I started writing, I assumed I was going to be done in 6 months. And this was way back in 2018.
Wow.
So I started writing actually in 2018, and I started writing mainly because I felt like the positions that I've had in life and the vantage points that I've had and some of the impact that I thought we were making at the time I was working for the government of Kaduna, I thought needed to be documented exactly for somebody like me who would come years after. Because I felt like what we were doing was very important, working to ensure that people at the lowest level of society also have a chance to build their agency, to be able to be someone. And so I started to document it mainly as a, sort of a diary in my iPad. So it started off as notes in my iPad, just taking notes about things that were interesting,
right,
things that I thought needed to be scaled, things that I thought were really disruptive in terms of how you do government at the time. Fast forward 5 years now, so it's really taken me this long to write it. So if it's not only taking this long to write it, but just to be able to present it in a manner that I felt would be useful. I wrote it mainly for people like you, from the outside looking in, but also people like me who were getting their first taste of really being in a position that would have a lot of impact on other people. And then also for our development partners, who many of them come in with a lens that they're experts in their field, and they realize that a number of things don't work. And many of them keep wondering, why do things not work? Things that seem to be commonsensical. So I try to explain a lot of that in the book to show that really there are reasons why things don't work, and if we don't understand the reasons why they don't work, then they will never work, and the poor will continue to suffer, our country will continue to suffer, countries like ours will continue to suffer. So to a simple answer to your question is it's taken me over 5 years, really, to write it, mainly because I've been very busy in between this. I was a commissioner, I was chief of staff, I ran for governor, ran for senator. So it's just taken so long, but
So
alhamdulillah, it's here.
Mashallah, it's good to have you, and I like the answer you give, because a lot of people like Masa, we don't understand politics, we don't understand governance and everything. So from a distance, what we see is that these guys are just enjoying the money of the poor people, and just creating policies and making people suffer. And like I said, but when I went through your book, especially when your wife woke up by 3 a.m. and she was looking at you, and you woke up and you looked at the clock and it was still like 3, right? And you were about to make a major decision to disrupt their own life, right? And for someone to do that, meaning just for you to wake up one day and make a decision, and even your wife was looking at you, at that point that she was looking at you, tell me how you felt. But before you tell me how you felt, can you tell the viewers, how that transpired?
Well, this was early 2015. So in 2013, I was living in New York with my family. I had 3 young boys at the time. We had just had Ahmed, our 3rd child, and they were in very good schools. My 2 boys were in the United Nations school. I was working with the UN at the time, and very high-profile meetings. Almost every week, I get to meet one president or one head of state or the other. So it was. we were living in the middle of Manhattan, and it was a good life. But back home, if you can recall, at the time was when really Boko Haram had really started to really penetrate our towns and cities. And my parents, my aged parents, live in Kaduna. My siblings live in Kaduna, Kano, Abuja, scattered across Nigeria. We have a huge family. So almost every week, there was one of them that was very proximate to where some bomb had gone off or some shooting had happened. And so even though I was in the middle of a concrete jungle, really having the time of my life, I was always a phone call away from this person has just been blown to bits. And so I never really had peace of mind. And when I did when I thought about it, it just came down to, we had bad leadership in the country at the time, and I was intent on at least playing a small part, to making sure that ended. So I used to spend my weekends, writing. So I reached out to, at the time, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, who I thought would be fantastic to run Kaduna. He hadn't yet decided at the time to run. Many people had been talking to him about it. So I put together a small team. We wrote a couple of policy papers for him, and I was very happy when he finally decided to run. And so I used to take my time off, fly to Nigeria over a weekend and fly back, just to support the campaign. And so when he won, my intention was really to just go back to my job, and happy that somebody that was competent had taken over. And this was the time when I start the book. It's because when he won, he then invited me to come work with him as commissioner for economic planning. And so when I went back to New York, my wife was not very enthusiastic.
All right, speaking about how your wife felt, amazing. I came to this page whereby she said that, are you sure you want to subscribe to reduce opportunities for our 3 kids? who, by the way, were all under the age of 10, right, at that time.
Yes.
And are you sure you want to subscribe to a heightened fear for our lives and safety? Are you sure you want to replace our ordered and productive routine in New York with the chaos and dysfunction back home? I know you love Kaduna and Nigeria, but are you really sure about this? You know, when I read this, trust me, if it's me, Habibi, I will stay there, right? I don't know what I would do if I was in your situation, but I think it takes a high level of sincerity of purpose to make decisions like this. Everybody wants to japa today, right? Yeah. So, you know, just go on. Sorry, I cut you short.
Yeah. No, so I mean, this was really what was going through her mind, and for her, it was a huge gamble. But for me, really, I felt at the time that the United Nations has a lot of smart people. And if I leave, I'm not really irreplaceable, right? But I really felt that Kaduna could do with some input of, I mean, people that at least had a passion to do development. And that was really what I was passionate about. I really wanted to come and get my hands really in the mud and do the work to ensure that we are able to see a better place. And so I'm thankful I was able to convince her, you know, to really say, look, let's just do it. And she backed me, and alhamdulillah, here we are, what, eight and a half years later.
Amazing. You know, let's go back a bit. You know, you spoke about how you sent, you know, drafted right up to El Rufai, and I think it was 15-pager, right? A 15-pager you sent to him. At that point that you sent the 15-pager to him, how many people did you bring together to work on this? And what kind of people do you even think, okay, see, I think you know your interest? Because today, people don't want to do things for free, right? Yeah. We want to just write something. And were you sure that he was going to read it? And were you sure that he was going to see it? Yeah. You know, because you can just write something to, you know, he's a former minister, he's that. Yeah. Where did you get the confidence that he was going to say it? Yeah. And what kind of people did you put in your team?
Well, I mean, I think it was partly desperation, because I didn't really know him that much, to be honest. I mean, we'd met 1 or 2 times, but we didn't have a relationship. I had his email, because he's always put up his email publicly for anyone. And so the kind of people that I put together, I mean, one of the things I've had in my life is I've always been blessed with good friends, good people around me. I have a hobby, I call it collecting people, which means that I try to, when I see people that are special, doesn't matter what they do, even if it's bungee jumping or praying really hard, or I just like collecting people that are very good at what they do. Right. And so over the years, I think I've been able to gather a huge number of these sorts of people. And at the time, it was 5 of us, I think. So Jonathan was just finishing his PhD in Harvard. Zainab Usman, who worked with the World Bank, was finishing a PhD in Oxford. Femi Odemi he's a brand consultant in Lagos. Ahmed Baba was a banker in Kaduna, you know, and then a few other local Kaduna and Nigeria politicians who really needed to give us the flavor of what was really happening. And what we tried to do was to really write something compelling that would identify for him, we thought, why he should do this. Because at the time, you know, there were all these arguments, oh, he doesn't want to be governor, he'd rather do chief of staff to Buhari or some other thing. So, I mean, so we really sort of approached it in a very logical way to show him that this was the best position to take. Now, I don't claim that that was what changed his mind, but it surely helped, because we sent it, and I think a few days later he responded to my email and said it was quite interesting, and he looked forward to discussing it soon. So I actually took a flight on my own money. I mean, all the stuff that I did in that year was fully, I didn't collect money from anyone. And I flew to Abuja. I think this was the time of World Economic Forum, when there was a World Economic Forum in Abuja. Right. And I actually flew down just to see him. And he was gracious enough. He gave me an appointment. I took him through the document, and he was quite excited about it. And I think he assured me that he would be going to see General Buhari at the time with the document the next day, and that he would then take a decision subsequently. And I think he did. 2-3 weeks later, I got an email from him that said, let's do this. And basically, he'd want me to come at least work on the side on his policy team. So, from then we proceeded with all the drafts, the manifesto, the programs for the campaign, and all that stuff. And that's how really I got involved. So it wasn't like we had a one-on-one relationship. I took a shot, and it worked out.
That's really amazing. A lot of people, go into politics today. They go into, they want to be in a public space in the sense that they want to become either senators, House of Reps members, and likes of it. And personally, I've gotten to realize that a lot of them just have an issue with the fact that they just want to be out there, just want to be popular. But very little of them understand the economic stance of the country, what we need as an individual like survey. What do you advise young politicians to do?
Well, I think that whenever I see that desire to be in the public space from a self-promotion perspective, it's usually doomed to fail. And I think this is really why the country has not progressed as much as possible. I think that we have huge numbers of problems across various sectors. And if you have something to offer to solve problems, then you're the partners that we need to work with to move the country forward. But if your problem is about your position in the scheme of things, whether it be you want to be a senator or a governor, it really ends up with, once you become that, you can't produce anything else because you were never preparing to actually carry out the work. So really my encouragement and what I write about in the book is, for us to move forward as a country, we need people that are willing to change the status quo. We need people that are willing to disrupt the status quo, because one of the biggest problems that we have as a country, when you go into government, what they're always going to tell you is, this is how we do things here. And that's the biggest nail on the coffin of every change you can think of. Once you accept that this is how we do this here, then you're not going to change anything. And if your aim at the beginning was to be commissioner or to be a House of Reps member, and you've gotten there, then you're willing to let go of every other thing. So you're not going to change anything, right? And so really for me, I think that for people that are passionate about moving the needle in changing the fortunes of our country, and especially of the most vulnerable, then we have to be able to identify specific problems. We have a huge number of issues, whether it be from power, from water, from healthcare, from education. The most important thing is to be able to identify one thing and show how you can then address it. Now, if it requires that while addressing that problem, you see that it's a problem from the legislative side, and you have the capacity to go and be a legislator to change that, then that's a fantastic route to be a legislator. If you see that the problem is from the executive side and you think that you want to get involved, either by being the head of an agency that fixes this, but if you just want to be, because there's a car attached to it, there's a convoy and blah, then we're never going to have progress, right? And the faster we can put together this coalition of people that see problems that need solving, and then chase positions or support people to positions that can solve problems, the faster we change. The faster we continue to support people whose egos drive them to run for X, Y, or Z, or want to be in X, Y, or Z executive positions, then the faster we get to do nothing. Because once they become those things that they've set out to become, then everything else dies because they've achieved their ambition. And what's the next thing? A higher ambition. And this is really what has held us back for so long, because we've had public officials who are really just interested in the title that they carry, not the problem that needs to be solved. They've never identified a problem. They've never seen how to solve it, but they can't bring a coalition together to solve a problem. Because even if you don't have a PhD or a master's or even a basic degree, if you have identified a problem, then when you get there, you can put a coalition of experts together that can help you to solve it. But if you haven't done that, and all you want is to be able to drive into your village with a shiny new Jeep, then you achieve that as soon as you get in, and then the rest of the term, nothing happens. And really, that's what we need to get away from.
That's really amazing. We're just going to take a short break and we'll be right back. So, dear viewers, stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. We've been discussing with Brother Muhammad. Habibi, how you doing?
Good, alhamdulillah.
You know, I didn't want to cut that, but standard procedure make us to go on a break. So back to your conversation. We're talking about how, you know, young people can help their country, how we will have the sincerity of purpose to do what we have to do for the benefit of our country. You know, just by, okay, we want to have that name, that position, you know, get the cars, get the siren, which a lot of people today, unfortunately, are after that. You know, they look at it as a better life for them to live, more of like a profession. And if I'm there, I'm now good to go. Tell me, I'm a young person, and next few years, election is going to come. And I'm interested in politics. I'm interested in disrupting what I've seen. What kind of people should I bring along with me? Sometimes I might get emotional. I want to bring a lot of people around. Oh, these are people, these are my people. I have to go with them, even if they have the capacity or not. In your opinion, what do you think I should do?
Well, I mean, I think that politics is a very important field. Some take it as a career. I take it as a means to an end. Because I think that if you think of politics just as the end, then all you want to do is to keep politicking all the time. I think that we need to understand that politics is a means to get to an end, the end of which is you get into a position of responsibility. Mind you, I don't say power. A position of responsibility, because that responsibility is the ummah, is everybody, right? Is to be able to make sure that you are holding this position in trust. And what are you holding in trust for? Whether it is that you're charged with provision of social services or economic services or security, you have followers that are dependent on you. So when you get to that position, that's not the end of the day. I mean, you see people today celebrating that they've been appointed or given a responsibility. But the celebration really should be that discharge of the responsibility. It is how you're rated in the next 1 month, in the next 1 year, in the next 4 years, about have you delivered on that responsibility or not. So once you identify that you do want to be a part of those to be entrusted with the responsibility, then I believe that the politically pragmatic way is to be able to then sit down and find the pathway. How do I get into the position that affords me with this responsibility to be able to discharge? And whether it be a position at the state level, maybe at the local government, or whether it be at the state as a governor or a member of House of Reps or a national position, it then behoves on you to then put together the necessary mechanisms that will allow you to achieve that responsibility. And it starts with an assessment of yourself. What are my own skill sets? There are many people that assume that it's only boisterous, outgoing people that succeed in politics. That's not necessarily true. If you find yourself, there are many introverts across past decades that have ruled not only nation states, but entire regions, right? And what it then requires, what I think is very important, is to understand yourself, and then to be able to put together a team that complements you. For example, where you find yourself as a super policy expert, right? But you're not very good with talking to local people, then of course the team that you need around you is a more local team that are able to translate what you say and able to then get that connection for you. Where you find yourself as completely not grounded in the policy, then what you need around you is also policy experts that will then help fine-tune your messaging. So I believe it depends on who you are, and then the processes that you need to go through. I mean, Nigeria, we have very interesting stages. Some of it is dictated by law, for example, the Electoral Act, and some of it by the political party, right, that you're in. So understanding those things and then understanding how to then navigate them in a way that ensures success. Everybody's path is completely different and unique. What you might do to win an election in Anambra State is very, very different from what you're going to do in Yobe. It's very different from what you're going to do in Jigawa. So it also depends on your environment. So I believe that if you are interested, then there's a huge level of deep understanding of what is required that will take you probably a year to start preparing now, and then be able to identify the people that you require. If you're a money bag and you don't need anybody's money, then fine. If you need people's money, then you also have to court people that are going to sponsor you for the election. So all these things are dynamic, but I think that the most important thing at the beginning and at the end is to have that overarching goal that then brings people together to show that you are going for something bigger than just yourself. Because when we create a cult following that is based around us, then once we are not there, or once we get to the position that we are, then that following dies. But if you build around an idea, around the principle of solving a problem, then that transcends us. If you look through history, you will see that the people that we read about or watch are people that have built their entire life struggles around an idea, not around themselves. Even in the worst of times, if you look at what Hitler, for example, built around, it wasn't about Hitler. He became the symbolism, but the idea was much bigger than what he wanted. And if you check across history, whether it be religious figures or it be cultural or political, you will see that there's always something much bigger than that person. And I think that what we've lacked in developing countries, Nigeria included, is that we've not had real problem solvers, right? What we've had is people that are chasing that next title. And that's why really I think we have to disrupt politics as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that response. So dear viewers, stay tuned and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. As you know, the title of this book is Disruption. And guess what? If you've noticed, we have disrupted the set and we want to continue because you see, in life, everything's going to be disrupted. But when they do, we hope for the best from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we keep moving. So, we've been discussing with my brother Muhammad Sani Abdullahi, and welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us again. So let's go down history lane, right? 2009, when you graduated and you went to the airport and you had applied for a job, and the moment you arrived at the airport, you got a message that come for your test. Take me through that scenario.
Well, I began my working career in 2004, and after working for a while, I was privileged to get a scholarship by the British government, Chevening Scholarship, to study a master's in development economics and policy from the University of Manchester. So I packed my bags, headed to Manchester in 2008, and I had just finished my master's degree. I visited Nigeria briefly, and then while I was there, I had applied for jobs. Now, as a development person, the premier organizations to work with include the UN. I mean, the UN is top on the list because it gives you the widest range. It gives you the ability to be able to affect the lives of millions of people in the UN member countries. And so one of the jobs I'd applied for was a UNDP job in Nigeria. And as I returned to the UK that day, as soon as I landed, I got a text message saying that I was invited for an interview the next day in Abuja. I tried to get them to maybe do a Skype call, but they just said, look, if you don't come to Abuja, you miss the interview. And so I had to book another flight, a very expensive ticket, going back probably with the same plane that we'd come in on.
Right.
And just to say, that, so I got on and I headed back to Abuja. And from there, just as soon as we landed, the airport just proceeded, the BA flight lands at around 8.
Yeah.
And so just proceeded to the UN office in Abuja. And it was then when I was accredited, moved in to do the interview, that I realized that there was a lady sitting at the top of the desk who I knew from TV. But I wasn't sure. I thought she worked for the Nigerian government. And it was then that I realized that the role that the UN was hiring for was as an economic advisor to the senior special assistant to the president on MDGs. And at that time, Amina Mohammed, who is today DSG, was the one heading the interview. And, we had a bit of back and forth. And after the process, I was told that I had done significantly well. And I got the job.
Amazing.
Which was really, for me, a turning point in my life, in my career, because, Haji Amina has remained a mentor to me throughout my career. Since then, she wrote the foreword to this book.
Inshallah.
And she's today the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations.
That's really amazing, because when I was going through, the process of your interview with her, she made some statement when you came in, you had your masters, your 30 years then and the likes of it, and you were a bit cocky with them. Yeah. And she made a statement that was quite remarkable, and I want to just read it. So she said that you still have to get your hands dirty and scrub some toilets. You have degrees, but you haven't done the work yet. Whew. When she said that, how did you feel? Because when I read it to my friend, I told him that, and he said to me that, Nshuraim, if this was said to you, you would get so angry. And I was like, absolutely, I would get angry. In fact, I would feel like the world is on my head at that moment. But how did you feel what she said, and also how has this helped you in your life today?
Well, to be honest, I felt pretty bad at the time. Here I was, I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. I was pretty young, had 2 master's degrees, had gone around the world, had done reasonably well in academics. So I really assumed that I was impressive. But what she said to me really humbled me. And even today, it has remained the guiding principle of my life. Just because I had done the degrees and had been here and there did not mean that I had the experience, and I really hadn't done the work to deserve anything ever. So for me now, what I've always tried since then is to always try to avoid the titles. The titles might be important, but it's the substance that's much more important. It's the work that you're doing. It's the lives that you're changing. So scrubbing the toilets, she didn't mean it literally that I need to go in and scrub some toilets, but she meant that I needed to work my way up. You start from the bathroom, you clean it up, you move to the main room, clean that up, and that's when you really earn the right to sit on the table. You can't just arrive on the table and everything is done and you start taking the meal. You have to do the work. And that's what's missing, I believe, in so many of our young people today, so many of our leaders today. Nobody is willing to put in the work. Everybody just wants the big title. Everybody wants to just, you see people that have never worked a day in their life, and what's the first thing they want to do? They want to run for House of Reps. And so when they get there, they have no understanding of structure. They have no understanding of hierarchy. They don't know how government memos are written. They don't even know how to apply for travel. They don't know what the societal problems are that they need to resolve with legislation. And that pathway to do the hard work is very key. Because if you get to positions without going through that process, it's like being the IG of police when you've never been in the police force. You can never understand what is required to secure a nation, to lead a police force. So this is what we have in different sectors of our economy. So I think that scrubbing the toilet for me really became a mantra in my life. So I continue to seek roles today, not because of the position or the title that they give, but within that position, how am I able to serve? How many people's lives can I change? I'm much more interested in that. And I believe that when you are talking about disruptors, or people that want to change the status quo. There are people really, and if you look across the globe, for people that have really historically become something of a rallying point, you will see that there are always people that have tried to stay away from the BS and actually do the work. And at the end of the day, one day when they're telling their story, you realize that actually there's so much work that has been done here.
You know, talk to me about the most disruptive thing you've done apart from you living America.
I mean, I think if you look at career-wise, one of the things that I'm really quite pleased about is when we got to Kaduna, when I was appointed commissioner, I was given the budget portfolio. And as is done with budgets across Nigeria, still today, when you go in, you see a list of things. Oh, water, we're going to spend 5 billion. Health, we're going to spend 3 billion. Education, we're going to spend 1 billion. And when you try to ask why, nobody really has an answer. It's just, this is what we are used to doing. Oh, last year the budget was 3 billion. This year we have to make it 4 billion. Why? Well, because prices have increased. But nobody is asking the questions around what are we solving? What are the new challenges that we're solving? So if you pick up a budget today of any state apart from Kaduna, you will see that they are basically the same documents that have remained for the last 10 years. What we did, and I'm happy to have led in Kaduna, was we told everybody, look, we're going to start from a blank slate, zero base, that's what we called it. And I said to my colleagues, you come to me and you justify your things to come onto the budget. I'm not going to take what was done last year and then say you just increase it for 20%. No. Anything that's going to get on this document requires you to tell me what problem you're solving and then how much it's going to cost. Now, that might not seem special, but I guarantee you that that is the most disruptive thing you can do in government. Why? Because our budgets across Nigeria have become like real estate. This group owns the budget on maternal health care. That group owns the budget on fertilizers. This other group owns the budget on education. So when you try to move it, these guys have become so powerful and strong that they come at you with the biggest amount of resources that you can ever imagine. So for us really to maintain that fight and ensure that we actually cleaned out the budget and made sure that whatever was on it was what actually helped the people of Kaduna State was the most disruptive thing I believe that we did as a government in Kaduna, and I'm very happy to have led it. I had a lot of support from my colleagues, from the governor, but it was very, very difficult. And up to today, that's still required at the federal government level because that still has not yet been done. You will see that if you take the federal government budget today and you take the budget that was done 10 years ago, they still resemble each other. And that's because the interests that are in different sectors of the budget, whether it be defense spending, whether it be social security, are still really the same. So unless we're able to clean that out, one of the things that we found out, for example, in Kaduna was 3 commissioners all want to buy air conditions, right, for their ministries. An air condition would cost 200,000 Ministry A, 500,000 Ministry B, $1 million in Ministry C. Why? So what we did was we collapsed it and centralized and said, look, nobody's going to be procuring AC. Write your request for AC. We have one procuring authority that would negotiate prices for ACs across government and give us a single price, best quality, and supply it to you. The same thing with cars. One ministry would buy Prado, 30 million, another one Prado, 50 million, another one Prado, 100 million. And this is, I'm telling you today, how we are still running our federal government. So if we don't collapse and synchronize, we won't get the power of scale. And these things are all potentially disruptive things that are waiting to happen. Newspapers was another big thing. You think that they cost 100, 200 naira. What we found out at the end of the day was that you would supply newspapers, 60 newspapers per ministry, okay? These newspapers cost on the street 150 naira, in the ministry 300 naira. Now, that might seem like small money, but when you calculate it, this is daily. 60 newspapers per one ministry times 300 naira, and you have 14 ministries. So I said, look, we're scrapping the cost for newspapers. Everybody read your newspaper online. So we had the biggest fight for the first 1 year from newspaper houses because we had just taken away a free source of income, right? I said, I'm not going to put newspaper costs in the budget. Internet costs, this ministry cost 12,000 to provide internet for the month. This one costs 50,000. This one costs 100. I said, we're not doing that. We're going to have one broadband supplier that's going to walk through and we negotiate the prices. So those things early enough seemed easy enough, but were very, very disruptive to the point where people started burying juju in my office, and I talk about it in the book as well. I came and found, but I don't want to talk about it too much. People should go and buy the book.
Absolutely.
Nshuraim, you're getting me to read out this entire book. People should go and buy it.
Thank you so much. Just before we end this interview, personally, I this conversation has helped me, and I sit here with you, but I'm reflecting on so many stuff, and especially with my new role at the moment, and I ask a lot to make it easy, and I always say, thank you so much. I always say that a lot of young people, and this is what I always say, we always need somebody that will take us somewhere within ourselves that we haven't been, someone that has been there, done that, someone that understands it, someone that will hold our hands with sincerity of purpose and educate people. And I think, a lot of people want you to be self-aware, but not self-aware enough to decipher their intention towards you. So when we have mentors who educate us, when we have conversations like this, and it goes a long way. It goes a long way because a young person who wants to go into politics and he has the capacity, he has the will to change stuff, doesn't want to go because of, I don't want to sacrifice my freedom, the peace. But look at what you sacrifice, a beautiful stay in America, Habibi, you're chilling and the likes of it, but you left and came back to do what you had to do. Now, I'll end with this question. What are you most grateful for?
Wow, that's a deep question. Huh? I mean, for me, really, I mean, thanks a lot for saying what you've just said. Of course, one of the things that I lacked going into this role was someone that would tell me what I was going to see and be able to be there to advise me when I went wrong. I mean, my boss did a fantastic job, Malam Nasu. Before then, Amina Mohammed did a great job. So we have a few of them. But I think that the book would also be a companion to a lot of young people, old people that are going into government for the first time or have been there but find themselves lonely at a point. I've tried to write a lot of humor in there so that you can read it and stuff. I mean, I'm very grateful for a number of things. For the roles that I've had, I mean, I don't belittle them at any level. I've been very happy to the people that have been able to give me the opportunity. There are many people that are far smarter than me, but haven't had the opportunity to do the roles that I've done, and so I'm quite grateful for that. I'm most grateful for my family because they also sacrificed along with me, and they continue to do so. My wife, my children, continue to sacrifice because once you take on a public service role, your time is not yours. And many times these are thankless jobs because you finish and there are times when, I don't know if I wrote that, I can't remember if I wrote that in the book, but there are times when I would get to the office around 7, finish around maybe 11, 12, I come back, the kids are asleep, I barely see my wife and everything, head back over the next day, and then I come back, and then when I'm on the phone in the night just checking Facebook, I just see someone has dedicated his day abusing me. Right? Oh, this guy is just there chopping money. I'm like, so it comes with a lot with your reputation as well, for you to not just say, what is all of this? So one of the major risks that you risk getting into when you go into a public service role is someone just destroying your reputation on something that is completely untrue. And that's a risk that you have to face, and sometimes you have to stomach it and not say anything back. Right, so it's difficult, but I'm happy that I've had at least in this last 8 years a very public role, and alhamdulillah, I can sleep in my bed, calm. I have no thoughts of EFCC coming after me. I have maintained my sanity. Many people get in there and get hooked to drugs because it's the only way they can keep up. Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy that we've been able to stay. I mean, the 3 places that you said you saw me and we met was the mosque. So I'm happy that my relationship with my dean has gotten stronger. I continue to rely on good role models, both younger and older. When I see people like you inspire me, because at your age I wasn't probably as responsible as you are now. Like so I'm grateful for the sanity that is around me. I'm grateful that for the work that we've done in Kaduna, phenomenal work. I'm quite proud of it. If I stop my public service career there, alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful for that. So there's a lot to be grateful for health, for sanity, for life. And I'm grateful for the future, grateful for people that are buying the book. So alhamdulillah, there's a lot to be grateful for. Thank you so much.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Thank you so much for being on the program. I really, really appreciate. And for our viewers, now you have the opportunity to become a disruptor. And it's all about sincerity of purpose. What will be said of you if you go back to Allah tomorrow? What have you done? What impact have you brought to this world? So each and every person watching this interview, as we usually say, just take a moment, just think about yourself. What have you done? What are you doing? Are you a problem to the community, or you are part of those people that bring solutions to the community? And one thing I want us to all take back home today is those who are trying to make a change in our community, as best as you can. If you're not going to make the community better, don't go about tarnishing their reputation. It goes a long way, and it affects them mentally, and it keeps them down a lot. And sometimes you that is not doing anything might just put someone down that has been trying to help the community grow. So what have you done? We ask the Almighty to make it easy, and may Allah bless you all. Until the next episode, I'll leave you all in the care of the most gracious, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum.